listen, I want to learn this game of commercial. I want to come work for you. Do you have a property here
Yes.
that I can come and learn from? He said, probably not. But he called me a week later and he said, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I've never done it before. I manage my fourplex, but I have no idea how to manage commercial. He's like, okay, great. We have a property. It's 80 units, Section 42 LIHTC. Property manager has not been there for 2 weeks. And the property's like literally on fire, not physically, but it's got high delinquency, high vacancy.
Whoa.
I didn't know there was drugs and crime and cockroaches in Logan, Utah until I went to that property. And I wasn't there for the income. Let me tell you that. I was there for the learning experience, which has really helped me today. So at the property, there was a lot of like drugs and crime. We're just abusing the system. And what I would do that not many people would do is I would drive through my neighborhood at like midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 4 a.m. And I would catch people smoking on their balconies. Like I'm just setting the expectation. Hey, I'm going to show up and catch you guys and fine you for doing what you're not supposed to. And there was one tenant. He said, listen, I don't know if you know this, but your maintenance guy is dealing meth. And this dude has access to everybody's units. When he was out for the weekend or something, we got a hidden camera, stuck it up in a fan box, and we watched him for weeks. He was dealing meth and doing meth in the maintenance.
Oh.
What we ended up doing is we worked with Strike Force and we did a sting operation on him and one of his buyers and cleaned it up. So after 8 months, we got that property all cleaned up. Delinquency was down significantly, less than 5% gross in delinquency. Back up to 95 plus, got rid of a lot of drugs, got rid of a lot of cockroaches. And so we like stabilized that property and it's like going strong today.
Okay, welcome to an episode of Affordable Housing and Real Estate Investing. Guys, today I got Joe Rinderknecht on the podcast today, and he's investing in areas that not a lot of people know about. And he's keeping rents still affordable relative to what the area median income is for his area. And when I first talked to Joe, not only is, man, this guy, talk about how physical he gets. He's getting injured all the time, getting dislocated shoulders. This is a guy you don't want to mess with, but definitely a guy you want to learn from. So today, Joe, welcome to the podcast, man. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I appreciate it. And per the being physical and dislocating my shoulder, it was a week ago yesterday that I actually had surgery on my shoulder to fix all the injuries. So
Oh, I do not envy you.
yeah.
So Joe, tell us, man, I know you've been doing a lot, you've been experiencing significant growth, but take us back, man. Who's Joe? How did you get into this whole world of real estate in the first place?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll take it back to kind of the beginning. So for those of you who can see me, wearing a cowboy hat, and I grew up cattle ranching. My grandpa runs about 100 to 200 pair head ranch in northern Utah. And what's funny is like my last name Rinderknecht actually means keeper of the herd in German. So like since the beginning of time, we've been ranchers, right? Which is crazy. So growing up ranching, built a lot of values and standards for myself that we use in our business today. A couple of those being when you shake somebody's hand, it's as good as your word and your word is your bond. And that should be stronger than even, a paper contract. So doing what you say you're going to do, having integrity, hardworking,
Yeah.
being willing to have uncomfortable conversations at times and taking the consequences no matter what they may be, because nothing is ever perfect. So a lot of those values are, how we live by in our business. And I've always been kind of I like to say that I'm like the black sheep of my family and a little bit more of the dreamer. So my dad was the oldest of his siblings, and I'm the oldest of all of my cousins and my siblings as well. And so my dad, he was the first one to leave the ranch and got into construction. And so growing up and in like high school, I grew up doing construction with him. And I've done everything from concrete to framing to trimming to like pretty much the whole process of construction from starting building a property to the final finished pieces of it. And so I learned a lot of value in construction I didn't realize how much it would help me in this occupation of apartment complexes, but it's made the difference. And so, kind of being that black sheep, I've always it was crazy. There was one time because I'm named after both my grandpa and my great grandpa. And I had a gentleman, an older guy, a good old boy, as we call him. I met him on a ranch that I was working at, and he's like, "Man, you've got some big shoes to fill, having your last name and being named, after your grandparents." And I used to really internalize that. But as I got older, I'm like, no, I'm going to live in my own shoes and I'm going to create my own legacy. I'm grateful for what the grandfathers have created to get me to where I am today. But now I'm going to create my legacy for the family going forward. And so that's where I really went down this journey of, we started with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? Like most people getting into real estate, reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it kind of gave me that vision. It's just like, okay, I'm going to be the first millionaire in my family. I'm going to help my parents retire. I'm going to create a different legacy for my family going forward than just the one that we've been stuck with since the beginning of time, right? Ranching, which is still the core, right? I'm not ranching right now, but I plan to buy a ranch and to live on it, right? Just because I love that lifestyle and I choose to. But anyways, so that's where I started getting into college, going into learning the finance industry, entrepreneurship, real estate. And I actually ended up getting a degree in finance, bachelor in finance, with a minor in entrepreneurship and real estate. And pretty much got started in real estate back in 2015, 2016, bought my first property in 16. So I've been at it for almost a decade. And it's really funny because when I got started, my dad got burned in 08, 09, told me not to get into real estate. My father-in-law had some flips go bad that he partnered, told me not to get into real estate. But now my father-in-law has invested in multiple deals with me, and my dad and I are trying to buy a small portfolio together to help him retire because he has no retirement plan. So it's just kind of full circle. Is just, I think the message, right, is more of a mindset, is just go after what you want. And it's just crazy because if I'd have listened to them in the early days, I wouldn't be where I am today, and they would not be investing with me and asking me for my expertise to help them, right? So it's just a really cool full cycle.
Wow,
It brings
man.
us, to today.
Well,
You know,
there's a lot of things that we can take away from that, Joe, but I'm sure you are not the first person where someone says, don't get into real estate too, right? You're not going to be the first one.
for
So
sure.
take us back, right? When you decided to buy the first property, I'm sure all those voices were in your head. What gave you that confidence to take that leap and make that first purchase? What was that catalyst?
Yeah, I would say at that time in my life, yeah, there were the voices saying, don't do it. It's risky for whatever reason. But my higher, I guess, why was that I was newly married and had a kid on the way. And my wife and I were living and working for her parents. So we were living in their basement. My wife was a CPA. So she did their books. And I actually drove semi from 2015 to 2018 for her parents, right? While I was learning real estate and going to college. And we were just it's not a very healthy environment working and living with your in-laws and getting pregnant in the basement, you know? So it's we had to get out of there. And that's where it's just you know what? That was more of a motivator than the voices of saying not to do it. So we did it more out of need. And we ended up buying the most expensive duplex on the market, which was at that time 170 grand. It was an over
Wow.
duplex. And then year after that, we were able to leverage equity within the duplex. And that's when we bought my first fourplex subject to the mortgage. That's where more of those voices. My dad was, distinctly remember this conversation. He's like, hey, don't over leverage your duplex because I know Dave down the road who leveraged a lot and he lost it all. But then my question back to him was well, how successful is he right now? And he's successful, right? He's wealthy and has everything that my dad wishes that he had. And that kind of quieted him just a little bit because it's sometimes you have to take risk. And we took that risk, and that fourplex, it has probably been the single best investment I've ever made. Just, we held it for 7 years and it cash flowed like crazy. And my partner and I sold it for a $500,000 gain last year. And
Wow.
so, first it was out of need. Second was more of like the voices, but it's just like we just
And
did
you
it.
also studied finance. So I'm assuming you
Mm.
were practicing and learning how to analyze the deals throughout the entire way. So the first deal you bought, was that the first deal you analyzed, or have you been looking at deals for a little bit?
I mean, I hadn't analyzed a ton of multifamily, honestly. I would call myself just like I saw kind of an opportunity and I had no idea how to execute. I didn't know the how, but I just did it anyway. I had a mentor in the entrepreneurship program who he was a fix and flipper. And so I did some bird dogging for him, and he usually did small multifamily. And so I think he and I, like, we analyzed it a little bit, but that deal had like if anybody would look at it now, it was a zero cap. It was a zero cap rate. There was zero income coming in on it, right? Because it was a foreclosure. So the owner lived in one unit, and then the other 3 units were just, well, nobody had been paying rent for months, right? And that's because like this guy just gave up on life and didn't go collect rents. And so so we bought this in 17, right? One unit had been vacant for 3 years because he didn't want
Wow.
to go replace carpet. And then the back two
Wow.
units, they just hadn't been paying rent because he hadn't been asking for it. So there was zero income coming in on it. But I saw a way that I could solve his problem somehow. And I had a mentor who I talked to about it. And he's like, you have like, well, 1% chance of postponing the auction. That was happening 12 hours later. And, and like, I have no idea how to postpone auctions or how to do subject to. But, on Dumb and Dumber, where he's like, what are our chances? And she's like, less than 1%. So you're saying there's a chance? So like, that's the attitude that I had about that deal, and I took it, and we postponed the auction, and it took some time, but we got that deal done, and just went.
Oh, what a good story, man. See, I can't wait for like your kids to watch this podcast one day and just remember like, man, dad, that sounds crazy. But it all comes back down to, hey, do you see the opportunity? Most people see problems and run away. You saw the problem, but you a methodical lens towards it and thought, hey, he didn't collect rent because he didn't want to replace the carpet. And it seems like such a surefire way to solve the problem. But sometimes you might be wondering, hey, well, if it was so easy, why wouldn't that person do it? And you can't have the expectation for everybody else that you might have for yourself. And I
Yep,
hope like my daughter listens to this one day and just understands like, hey, sometimes it really is that simple. And you want to overcomplicate it because you want to come up with excuses to not do the thing.
yeah,
But you got to have confidence, just like how Joe did. Hey, if there's a problem, I'm probably gonna fix it. And you had a partner with you along the way. So it's not like you were going in completely blind. You had some construction experience. You had a finance, or we were studying finance at the time, and you had a partner who was doing some flips. So it wasn't like you're jumping off of a cliff with no harness.
yeah. Let me add one thing to that, though,
Yeah.
like your daughter, just to like let's be real here. I was terrified. I had to go knock on this guy's door and tell him like, "Hey, your property's going to auction tomorrow," and he had no idea. I mean, he just gave up on life, right? Like his mailbox was chock full. He hadn't done anything with mail for months, and he had no idea. And so, can you imagine a guy that has no idea how to solve? I have no idea how I'm going to solve his problem. I'm just going to tell him I'm going to solve his problem, figure it out. I was terrified.
Man, I so
So
relate.
sometimes you got to jump over that wall of just like have no idea what I'm doing. I'm scared to death, but let's try it anyway.
Man, dude, thanks for being vulnerable. Cause I don't tell this to people often, but when I was buying my first property, I stayed up all night. I was a little nauseous, you know what I'm saying? Like I was a little nauseous throughout that whole process. I'm like, wait a minute, do I know what I'm doing? And for
Yeah,
me, Joe, I mean, like when I got started, I was so afraid. I didn't know how to get that confidence. So the only thing I did was let me go analyze a deal every single day for the next 100 days. And I just said, I'll just go live. I will analyze the deal because I knew that at some point someone's going to ask me, what do you know? Like, do you think you know what you're doing? And the only way I will have the confidence is if I look back at a record of myself doing the analysis so that I can say, hey, I probably know what I'm doing. I analyzed the deal for 100 days. I've gone live for over 740 days in a row now. But I could be like, hey, I probably know what I'm doing because I can prove that to myself. So, dude, great story.
Yeah.
And so you gone from like a duplex to a fourplex, and then you went all the way to 54 units, Joe. So tell me about that leap of
Yeah.
going into the next level because look, when I talk to people in single family, everyone's like, I can't wait to get into multifamily. So tell us about how you made that leap into much larger multifamily sites.
Yeah. It wasn't a very quick jump, right? So I'll give you kind of the timeline. 16 bought the duplex, 17 bought the fourplex, and I did some like duplex, fourplex renovation and flips between like 17 till end of 18. And in October of 2018 is actually when I quit my trucking job with my in-laws and went all in on myself doing multifamily because I was trying to buy a 44 unit below campus, Utah State University in Logan, Utah. And I was getting a budget from a property manager, a commercial property manager, right? And he showed me like, hey, you can increase your other ancillary income by like 120K a unit or 120K per year, which comes out to be, I don't know, it's like $3,000 per unit per year. And that really like opened my eyes to commercial real estate because I'm like, because at that time I was actually trying to start a residential property management company, but I didn't really enjoy it because like there's not a lot of value that you can add to single family, even duplex, fourplex. Like you can do pet fees and late fees and app fees, but you can't usually do a mandatory media package or, some of these other ancillary items, right? And so I'm like, I need to learn this business of commercial. And so I didn't end up getting the deal, but I went back to that property manager and I said, listen, growing up, I was taught by my grandpa, by my dad, working on the ranch, working construction, the concept of apprenticeship, the apprenticeship route. And so I went to this property manager and was like, listen, I want to learn this game of commercial. I want to come work for you. Do you have a property here that I can come and learn from? And he said, no, probably not. But he called me a week later and he said, are you serious? Like, you want to come and work for me and learn property management? I'm like, yeah, I've never done it before. I manage my fourplex, but I have no idea how to manage commercial. But I had the desire, right? I think that's the key. I had the desire to learn and I was ambitious about it. He's like, okay, great. We have a property. It's 80 units, Section 42 LIHTC. Property manager has not been there for 2 weeks. And the property is like literally on fire. Not physically, but it's got high delinquency, high vacancy.
Whoa.
I didn't know there was drugs and crime and cockroaches in Utah, let alone Logan, Utah, until I went to that property. Since this is the affordable podcast, right? Your listeners, they know about when you deal with like Section 8, Section 42, you got to deal with certifications, income certifications and research. And you have to do all that by paper. You can't do that online. It has to be written on paper, like even modern day. I don't know. Maybe they've changed it, but 2019, we had to do everything by hand on paper. So imagine me getting thrown into the fire, never had any commercial property management experience before, got to collect on delinquency, got to lease up units that are ridden with cockroaches and need renovation work done. And I also have to do these certifications for new tenants. And when people renew, they have to recertify their income. So I got paid like 24 grand a year at this property. And I wasn't there for the income. Let me tell you that. I was there for the learning experience, right? And man, I got it, and which has really helped me today. Yeah, I love telling this story. So at the property, right, there was a lot of like drugs and crime. And were just abusing the system. So like the first thing in property management, that when you take on a property or you're a property manager taking on a new property, you have to train your tenants on
Mm.
expectations and standards that you have. And so the biggest one that our tenants didn't give a flying crap about was smoking.
Oh,
You can't smoke on your balcony. You can't, like, if you do smoke, you need to go throw the butts away. And there was a lot of like drug use on that property. And so what I would do that not many people would do is really funny, because like at that time I was driving like a 98 Dodge Cummins. It's a big, huge truck. And I kid you not, I would drive through my neighborhood at like midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 4 a.m. And I would catch people smoking on their balconies. Like, I'm just setting the expectation. Like, hey, I'm going to show up and catch you guys and fine you for doing what you're not supposed to. So I would show up. And then for anybody also in low income or affordable housing, your police department has like kind of a secret department called the strike force. And so I went and we partnered with the strike force, and they would come at nights with their drug sniffing dogs and walk the property at night,
whoa.
because they want to crack down on drugs too. And the fun story that I like to tell is that there was one tenant who used to be like hardcore junkie, right? Meth, coke, all that fun stuff. He said, listen, I don't know if you know this, but your maintenance guy is dealing meth. And I'm like, wait, what? And this dude has access to everybody's units, right? So when I heard about that, I went to my regional and said, hey, like, I actually have evidence that can back this up, that he's dealing. So when he was out for the weekend or something, we got a hidden camera, stuck it up in a fan box, and we watched him for weeks, like dealing and doing, like he was dealing meth and doing meth in the maintenance.
Oh,
So I have this big truck, right? So I remember it was like or like December time. Like I would show up at 2 a.m. because I would watch him on my phone on that camera. And I would pull up to the maintenance shop at like 2 a.m. in my truck, and I would just sit there, and he's like freaking out. Like, why am I here? But like my office was connected to the maintenance shop. So I would like walk into the office and I would just like kick my feet up and like act like I was working at like 2 a.m. And he would be like freaking out, right, in the maintenance shop, trying to not make it look like I would hear anything. What we ended up doing is we worked with strike force and we did a sting operation on him and one of his buyers and cleaned it up. So after 8 months, we got that property like all cleaned up. Delinquency was down significantly, to where like it was like less than 5% gross in delinquency. We got
wow.
the back up to 95 plus. Got rid of a lot of drugs because like we were working the strike force. I would drive around. And so it's just like we would go at the times when the drug activity would be the most. But now it's like when I would show up and the regional would show up and the strike force and the police, like they quit doing drugs because we set the standard that like we will catch you. Got rid of a lot of cockroaches. And so we like restabilized that property, and it's like going strong today. So like that property manager didn't have like another problem property for me to take over. And so that's when I started going and working for other operators around the country, learning the cycle or the full life cycle of a deal, from underwriting, finding deals, all the way to dispositions. So
Whoa. All right. So much to unpack there. Dang, what a great story. But a couple of things to take away from that for me personally, because what you had described there with the property that you took over 80 units, it was online tech. I mean, drugs, drama, like that's literally what scares most people away about affordable housing. Now, personally, I define affordable housing as just you don't spend more than 30 or 40% of your income for your living needs.
yep.
And it shows how much property management matters. Because when you said, hey, the property manager hasn't been there for 2 weeks, like the place is literally on fire. Like you got to collect rents. And so many people forget, they want to flash like I bought this big building, but they forget how to operate it. They forget that you got to hire people that care, just like how you did. If you didn't care, you wouldn't be driving there at 2 a.m. in the morning trying to make sure you're enforcing a high level of standard to say, no, we said you can't smoke. So don't test me. because they're going to test you and they're going to take whatever they can and whatever you tolerate. And this is how you set the standard and turn around a property, is by having great people like Joe that cares about the property, that understands you have to put in the hard work for people to listen.
Yep.
Otherwise, they won't respect you. And I think that applies not just to affordable, but any other property out there. Doesn't matter if it's market rate or not.
Right.
It's, do you have great people that care about the place, that cares about the standards that you're setting, and making sure it's a great community, clean, safe, decent, and hopefully affordable.
Yep.
Oh my, that was so good, Joe. I'm so glad you shared that story. And
It's
I'm so glad because now you understand what it takes to operate. I can't tell you how many times I met syndicators where they have like, oh, 3% expense increase every single year. Based off of what? What if all your ACs get stolen because you're in a bad area because you didn't put a cage on? Like, dude,
Yep.
it
Yep.
doesn't make any sense. So, Joe, I love that you share that story. And did you still, like, did you exit that property? Like, you were just managing that property for that person you're learning from, right? Okay.
Yeah. So the property management company, I mean, they run about 20,000. At that time, they were 20,000 units, across the Western Front. And so that property was actually one of the first ones that they had built back in the early 2000s.
Wow.
So,
That's
yeah,
relatively new too, building in 2000s.
it was relatively new, but it had just gone downhill and quick,
And that's
right? When somebody who didn't care was in there. And what's crazy is like the guy who was in there before I found out, like he used to be a cop
oh,
and like they
what?
have no idea what happened to him. He just like fell off the face of the earth. Yeah.
Wow, that's kind of crazy how that works.
Yeah.
So you cut your teeth in property management and asset management.
Yeah.
And what led you to becoming sort of like a syndicator, like kind of doing your own thing with your own fund now? Like tell us a little bit about that transition.
Yeah. So, I mean, I saw the power of commercial, of like what you could do, right, to add value. Cause like without even using my own money, like I took a deal that was literally on fire and restabilized it and saw like, hey, this is where income and expenses were. This is where they are now. These are the things that we were able to do to impact our gross line, the expense line, and ultimately the bottom line. So I saw the power of like what could be done to like a value add deal. And so when I went and worked for these other operators around the country, I worked for a group out of Austin, a group out of Vegas, a developer in Logan, Utah, and a handful of smaller ones in between. I just saw like the power of like what could be done with syndications and like the money that you could make. But also, like I'm a big proponent of like impact investing, in my mind is like, okay, when you invest, like think about all the people it impacts. It impacts your tenants. It impacts the employees of the property management company. It impacts all your subcontractors, your general contractors that do the work, impacts your investors and their families, impacts myself and my family and all the people around me, right? So are you doing, because like there's plenty of slumlords out there that just don't care about any of that. They're just worried about the dollar, right? But it's just like, how can every dollar that we make an impact on everybody associated with that project? And I knew that I could add value there with syndication. And so that's when like in 21. So like between 19 and 21, I didn't buy a single property. It was like actually the fall of 2018 to March of 21, I didn't buy a single deal because I was just learning. I was doing the whole,
Wow.
thing to
Patience.
learn the business. I'm also like a very long-term visionary guy. Like I remember in 2017 talking to the partner I bought the fourplex with. Like I remember where I was, what semi I was driving, and I just told him, I was like, I will buy large apartment complexes one day. And so I took years to learn that business. And that's when I bought my first in like, what was it, March, April of 21. We bought a 24 unit that we turned into a 32 unit. And that was like really where that deal like really helped me cut my teeth on the operational side of a syndication.
Whoa. So you took a 20 unit to 30 something units. How did you add all those units? Was it existing square footage? Did you make additions?
It was
How did you do that?
existing square footage. It was 1951 built property. Out of the 24 units, 12 of them were 3-bed, 1,300 square feet. And so we had 4 of those 3 beds that were on the main level of the complex, and we cut all 4 of those into 8 ones. So we gained 4 units there. And then in the basement where like the washer and dryers were, we had windows that were egress. So we tore out like the washer and dryer, and it was actually a big storage area. We did the calculation and we would make more money by having 4 more units because each wing we had essentially like you could take one wing of the building and it would be symmetrical across the other 4 wings, right? So we analyzed everything off of one wing. Each one had a storage unit. So we turned each storage unit into a 2-bedroom. So that's where we were able to get 4 more units. So we were able to increase by 8 units there.
Oh, dude, so good. I mean, you just keep seeing opportunity left and right when everybody would have looked at that property and say, oh, no, that's not a deal. But you look closely and say, hey, look, that laundry room has egress windows over it. I can convert that. Those threes, that's not fit for the market. I can turn that into extra ones.
Yep.
That is so freaking good. I wish people would just have a shared, I don't know, you wear contacts, share it with everybody else is looking. I don't know, man. Dude, so so do you still own that property today? Did you guys dispo it?
We sold it last September.
Wow,
We
dude.
held it for like 3.5 years.
So you
And
got
I
the
love
extra units,
it. So
stabilized it.
it,
Yeah,
it
please.
it was a tough deal. It was an extremely, extremely tough deal. And I can
And
get
tell us about the hardest problems with that deal. Tell us 1 or 2 hardest problems with that deal that you faced and how you overcame that.
so the 2 major difficulties were if we remember back in 21, 22, interest rates were 21 was like the lowest ever, right? So like we got a bridge loan at 5%, but it was variable. And so overnight it went to 10%, like 10.5% by the time we sold it. So that was problem number 1 that we didn't have a rate cap or have a fixed. I mean, it's tougher with bridge debt to have a fixed, but at least a rate cap, right? We didn't do any of that. Nobody knew it was going to go from 2%
No.
to double, triple, quadruple that overnight, right? And the second thing was construction. So I was more of a minor partner on that deal. I had 2 partners that were more majority owner. And so here's a really good lesson because like this deal, right? We knew that there was value to add units. That also meant that like it had all old systems, right? It had asbestos plumbing, the windows were all so like we did a massive renovation on that. At the end of the day, we ended up spending about 100,000 a unit to renovate because we did new roofs, new windows, new parking. We had to tear out sheetrock, and it wasn't even sheetrock, right? It was lath and plaster. We built these units back up to brand spanking new kitchens and bathrooms and everything. Everything was brand new, right? So it's like 1951 build, 2022 to 24 renovated. So it's like brand new. Like even plumbing, electrical, it was all new. Plumbing, the main line to the building is brand new. So it's like a 51 shell and everything else is brand new. The problem is that when you're buying a property like that, that's super hairy and has multiple moving pieces, when you're getting bids from a general contractor and they say you're like 1 million off on your renovation. Because like we were budgeting 1.5 million and they're like, you should probably expect 2.5. So the learning is listen to those general contractors, especially when multiple tell you that you're low on your budget. And we didn't listen. We thought we were cool and we had done this before. I had done construction. The main partner on the deal had done a lot of development, but never anything like rehab to this level. That was our first downfall, that we didn't listen to professionals and hire professionals. So we tried to general it ourselves and brought some cheaper subs in. And we ended up getting taken for a ride by multiple of these like general contractors because we was 2 buildings. Each building was 12 units. So we had to vacate an entire building at a time because right, we were updating all electrical, all plumbing. So when you have like 16 to 20 units vacant at one time, you have no income coming in,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And you've got to like be able to bust out those units quickly because vacancy is the number one killer
Yes.
property, right? Like at one time, we were probably 80% vacant, in like 22, 23, we were like 80% vacant. And so we just had to like, instead of like trying to renovate every unit at once, we had to shut it down to like, okay, we got to get one wing done, which was 8 units. We got to get these 8 units done, get certificate of occupancy,
Mhm.
get it leased up. Then we had to go to each wing and do that.
Well, let me ask you one thing. So you had people living there already, but then you also have to think about the logistics, the sequencing. Like, where do
Yeah.
these people go live while I'm trying to renovate? Because you were also adding units at the same time.
Yeah.
So, how, looking back now, how might you sequence the work first? Would you have wanted to subdivide units first or renovate the as is units? What would you have done?
I probably still would have done something similar. We still would have had
Mhm.
to have vacated an entire building, which we're
Nah.
doing because we're updating all electrical. We had to like even tear out the electrical mechanical box. But like the tenants, we had to tear out sheetrock to run the new electrical through the building, tear out for new plumbing. So what I would have done differently though is like hired that general that actually knew what he was doing and had the subs to where it's like, okay, we can do all demo, all electrical, all plumbing, and then start doing all the finishes, all the repair work, and then flooring and then paint. Because like we'll talk about this deal, I'm sure the Missoula deal that we've been like really successful at. We renovated 20 units in 4 months. So like
Wow. Experience.
the reason we did that strategy on the Montana deal is because that's one thing that I learned from the Utah deal that went bad.
And just to clarify, so now we're moving, just so everyone's following, we're moving from the 24 unit to a 32 unit conversion. You have exited that deal, right?
Yep.
Got it. And ultimately, what was the end result from that 32 unit deal they converted? Did you guys get out okay?
I mean, for the time of 24, if we want to look at that year, there was a lot of people losing, like
Yeah, they
a lot of
were.
capital, right? So we bought it for 2 million. You know what they say is like you make your money when you buy. We bought it right? We bought it for 2 million. We put, like I said, about 100,000 a unit. So we put about 3 million into it, 3.2, and then we sold it for six and a quarter because we were able to more than double rents. And this is for those of you who know Utah, it's in Brigham City, Utah, which is actually a fairly value add town itself, right? So rents weren't super high. It's a fairly low income area, but we were able to get investors 100% return of their
Wow.
capital. And I do believe this to this day that the only reason we were able to even do that is because from that time period, from like 22 to 24, my partners and I, we had to show up every day because like we couldn't trust these generals to get the work done. And so like I lived like 45 minutes away from the property and I knew how to swing the hammer. So for 2 years, like I lived off of credit cards
Whoa.
and just swung the hammer, man. One of my mentors tells me it's just like if you want somebody to follow your standards, like you got to be the one to show them what those standards are. And so like I had a very
Yes.
specific quality of work that I wanted achieved at that property. And so like I showed up and I showed them how to frame up the walls and like these are subs that know what they're doing, but it's just like I was there doing it with them every single day, like 3 to 5 days a week. There was times where it's like we knew we had our C of O, certificate of occupancy, coming up, and my partners and I, we would stay up. Like I remember there was 2 or 3 days where we just drink Red Bulls all through the night to just get everything cleaned up for that inspector to come. Like 72 hours, just no sleep, just getting things done. So
Because
it's
you
just
care.
we care
Because you cared.
and
Because you
I had
care.
family money in that deal too. And we had about 1.25 million of investor capital in that deal. And if we would not have shown up, and actually like one of the investors, we had to do a capital call of about another 500, 700,000. We had one investor that brought the bulk of that. So like his investment went from 300 to 800. Like if we would not have shown up, we would not have gotten a return of capital out of it.
And everyone in the market at that point was saying, they're blaming the economy, they're blaming the Federal Reserve, and here you guys are saying, "Team no sleep, give me the Red Bull, let me go get this done." Because all these people trusted me with their hard-earned capital, with their time, their energy, their sweat. So who am I to think I can give up? I'm gonna go there and make sure it's done correctly.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, that was one of the hardest times of my life,
Oh,
right? I almost lost my marriage because of it. I wasn't making any money, but I couldn't go get a job and I couldn't go do another syndication. I had no bandwidth, right? So, I thank God every day for my wife. She was a CPA and she was feeding the family. It was tough, but looking back now, I'm so grateful for that tough experience because it's made me who I am today. And it's really helped mitigate risk on these last 4 deals that we bought in the last 12 months. It's really primed me to kind of take off in our business and have built a lot of trust with those investors and other investors. So
I know. So many people ask me, like, how do you, I don't have money. How do you raise money? And I always tell them, how do you become worthy of it? And the only way you become worthy is you put in the work. You can look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm going to give it my all, my best every single day. And thank goodness we have like amazing spouses that support us in this crazy journey that we're in, Joe. Because man, it's freaking crazy. And when money isn't coming in and you're still chasing it, you can look insane. Ah, so I can only imagine what you were going through, not just on a professional side, but personally, man. I mean, seriously, props to your wife for kind of sticking through it with you.
oh
It's
yeah,
not.
I got lucky.
I'm so grateful for my wife too. So man, let's all right, I know we're almost at time, but I want to make sure I get into this 54 unit deal because every single step we have talked on the show so far, from that duplex to the quadplex to the Section 42 property to this property. Now you got the 54 units. Tell us about the deal. Let's hit on some numbers really quick.
Yep.
When did you buy it? What did you buy it for? And just give us some facts so that we can kind of have that pretense before we talk about a story behind it.
Funny story with this property. We bought it. It's called North Russell Apartments, 54 units in Missoula, Montana. We bought this deal September 30th of 2024. We sold that Brigham City, Utah deal like September 26th. So it was days after that we sold that one that we bought this one. And the cool thing is that one investor I was telling you about that brought the bulk of the capital for the capital call, he rolled his whole $800,000 from that Utah deal into the
Oh,
Montana deal,
yes.
right?
Yes.
What happened
Yes. Way to
when we
go. Why?
fast. So, but yeah, I'll get into the numbers. So, property was built in '98. We bought it from the original builder. We bought it for $6.8 million, which is like, I don't know, 124 a unit. At that time, we have majority 2 beds, and we have, let's see, 14 studios, 16 1 beds, and 20 or 22 2 beds, if I'm doing my mental math right. The average rents were like 785, somewhere in that range. So really, really low for that area. And so my partner and I knew the area pretty well. I think, that's like most of everything we're buying now is Montana, Idaho, Utah. And so like we know our markets really, really, really well. And we knew that that was a really good deal. We were able to come in and be competitive and ended up winning the deal. So I have a pretty crazy story with how we won the deal too, if you want me to go through that. But
Yeah, let's do it. I love stories.
okay, I'll make it quick though. So I saw this deal like on a Wednesday night, like 7 o'clock, and they originally listed for 6.5. And I saw that. So for any of you who like want to like really get into deals, go to LoopNet, go to Crexy, create alerts so that like deals hit your email that hit your criteria of what you want to buy in the areas that you want to buy. Because I had that set up. This was a LoopNet listing. So got it, like I said, like a Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. Immediately knew it was a deal because of just the price per unit, knowing my market. Emailed the broker back, said, hey, can you send me a rent roll? Because like we can underwrite a deal based on the rent roll, right? Just because of like gross potential rents minus like an expense ratio percentage, right, for the area. So we immediately knew it was a deal. So we were the first ones to offer on the deal. And we knew it was such a good deal too that we put up like $50K non-refundable earnest money, which was uncommon for that time of, last year when people were losing money and losing deals. Like a non-refundable was unheard of at that time, but we did it because we wanted the deal and we were willing to take that risk. And so we were first offer, first to tour it. And it was like that Sunday that it was like a 5-day call for offers, right? So it was super, super quick. So what's crazy too is, these good old boys, they do things kind of weird sometimes. But he had the broker list the property and he went to Africa on a safari hunt the same day. So it was like he was super like completely different time zone across the world. And so it's like we were talking to him like 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday. I don't know what time it was his. And he verbally told my partner and I that he would take our offer because we actually came up a few times on our offer because, again, we knew the deal and a couple $100,000 isn't going to really affect your price per unit. To make a long story short, Monday came around. We were waiting for the contract, never saw it. We were like, assume the obvious, which was, okay, somebody else came in with a higher offer, which is what happened. Called the broker, said, hey, like we haven't seen anything from you. What's going on? Said, yeah, as you can expect, like 2 offers came in at midnight, 11th hour, and one of them is like $210,000 higher than yours. And it's by a local buyer who has a local presence, right? Who the seller knows. The broker's like, do you want to increase your price $215K just to get above him? And my partner and I, he actually grew up on a ranch and a farm in Oregon too. So we both grew up with a lot of the same values, which is your word is your bond. And so we weren't willing to come up on our price. And like, again, I was terrified to lose the deal because I'm like, I haven't bought a deal in years and this would be the best thing. But we're like willing to let it go. We called the broker back and said, you know what? And the seller too was selling this property to go buy a ranch. So it's like he knew and had lived the same values. So we're like, you know what? No, we're not coming up on our price. We want the seller to hold to his word. We know that like 210K is a lot more money, but we understand that. But we're going to do everything what we say we're going to do. When we go under contract, we don't retrade unless something crazy comes up in the inspection, right? We don't retrade, which is a big no-no. Reneging is a big no-no in this game. So he came back and was just like, you know what? I like these guys' attitude. I'll do the deal with them. And we got the deal done. So
Wow, way to freaking go. So many other people would have been like, oh, shrinked up, like, oh no, what's gonna happen? Maybe we do a little bit more. But you held your ground.
I mean,
So
we
much
could have
respect for
gone
that.
up. Numbers still would have been amazing, but he gave us his word, and we were willing to let it go for that. So
That is so freaking important, and I just can't harp on that enough. I mean, I hope my kids listen to that one day and just understand how important your reputation is. Like, I would try to protect my reputation at all costs, no matter what, because that's gonna stay with you no matter what. Because they're gonna remember the last time they did a deal with you, it's gonna come up in weird ways if you do not hold up your end of the deal. Oh,
yeah,
so good, Joe. All right, so man, this is scary. So you literally just got out of a bad deal. 4 days later, you're under contract for another deal. And you knew the market really well. But how far under market were the rents? You said it was 750 on average.
yeah. So about half, honestly. So
Half?
like 2 beds, the average rent was like low 800s. Those 2 beds right now are renting for 1550 plus what is an $80 utility fee, so like an effective rent of 1630, and the rents were in the mid 800s.
Wow, it almost seemed like it was too good to be true. So obviously, typical untrained mind would say, well, if it was so easy, why wouldn't the seller have done it? Why didn't he do it? So how do you help people understand? Like if your kid is asking me that question when they, dad, why do you think this is so easy? Like what would you tell him?
Well, I mean, let's think about like that seller. Like his basis in it was a couple million, maybe. Maybe he's got it paid off, right? And like, sure, he could have gone and increased rents, but like he's making a ton of cash flow just with the rents where they're at. Right? And, like, this guy has other properties, and I guarantee you he's seen what we've done with the property. Because like, a year later, we have that property for sale right now for 11.8 million, right? Which is 5 million more than what we bought it for 12 months ago. But, like, he still hasn't gone and done anything like we have on his other properties. It's just, Like he has his own business plan and we have ours, right? It's just like he can easily, I mean, he's a developer, right? He could easily go do what we've done, but he's just happy with what he has and everybody has
Right.
a different vision and he's content making the cash flow he has and going on African safaris whenever he wants. Like he goes on a lot and doesn't have to work. And so,
And that's exactly what I'm trying to get across to people. Not everyone wants the same thing you do.
right.
Yeah, you could do all the work, get extra $5 million, but at some point you would think about, is that worth my stress? Or is it somebody else's problem now at this
Yep.
point? Right? This is so good. So now you have it. So you did a massive increase. Tell us about what happened with the rent increase. Like what do you expect to happen and what actually happened?
So about 90% of our leases were month to month at that time too, because he didn't care. You know, he didn't ever increase the rent. So why put people in leases? Which helped us significantly. So we went in and did a blanket increase across the property. Knowing our market right, we went in and increased the rents $385 per unit across the board. And we're expecting a mass exodus of tenants, you know. We were expecting like at least 60%, 50, 60% to leave. And it was crazy and was kind of telling to like, okay, this is how good we did know our market, but 60% of the tenants stayed at the property. So we had a 60% retention,
Oh, wow.
right? And so only 40% moved out, you know, give or take a few percentage, like 20 units left and the rest, the other 34 stayed. So we gave them 60 days to move out. Our renovations effectively started December 1st. And what's really cool about it is we originally had planned on renovating all 54 units and we had budgeted about $8,000 per unit renovation. But when in that 2-month period from when we bought it to when we started renovations, we went and got like legit bids and it actually was closer to like 20K a unit
Oh,
we were going to have to pay because like Montana labor, I don't know how to say this kindly, but there's no like good Hispanic labor up in Missoula, right? It's all white guys that pay through the nose because they know that they can. There's, you know, there's barriers to
it's
entry.
not much help. Yeah.
And so anyways, my partner and I, he had bought a bunch of stuff in Utah. So we had solid subcontractor relationships in Utah. So what we ended up doing is we hired cabinets, paint, and flooring out of Utah, which was so good for us because like our effective price per unit or cost per unit is like 13 grand because
Whoa.
go in and demo out every unit once and then go do flooring on every unit at once and then paint and then cabinets and then all your finishes at once. So we were able to build a Ford conveyor belt with our apartments to get it done in 4 months, you know, through the winter months. So when everybody else was slow, they loved us, you know, our contractors, because they'd show up for like a week and a half and stay at the property and they would bust out all 20 units with flooring or paint.
Oh,
Yeah.
and they stayed at the property while they were renovating everything.
Okay. 'Cause
Wow. So you went from 8 grand to 20 grand per unit for renovations, back down to 13 grand, because then you figure it out quickly, like, we got to get this cost under control.
yeah.
That is execution, people.
So
It's not just a single cell on Excel spreadsheet that you just say, oh, it's going to cost X amount. This is what it takes to get that number to become reality to make this deal work. So good, Joe.
yeah.
So good. And because I was wondering, how did you get it down? And you literally thought outside the state to bring people in. Seriously. Oh my goodness. So now this is like a perfect deal. So now you guys got it back out, listed out, almost like nearly like $5 million gain. Not recognized yet, but that's what you have listed out now.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
And this is affordable. Even at 1,400 rents right now, that's affordable for the
Yeah.
area median income in that area, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, there's a couple comps that are right next to us. I mean, you can look at them if you want. It's called Stoddard Apartments and Grand Central. Their units are $100 easily over ours. You know, and like the AMI average median income is around $100,000. So if we want to keep it below, say 30%, right? What is that? 3K, I think. Yeah. So like our rents are half of that. So, and we know who our tenant base is too. We have 80 people living at our property, 82 people. These are the last statistics I remember is we had 70 adults and 12 kids. And the large majority of the tenants are white males in their mid 30s working blue collar labor jobs. So,
And you understood that market. That's how you knew it was still absorb, right? Once you kind of get all renovated.
yeah. But I mean, here's another fun statistic for you. We have never been over 2% delinquency, even after we did these massive increases. Even
Oh,
after
wow.
we did the $385 increase in December, we were expecting crazy amount of delinquency. There was one tenant. We've only ever had like one bad actor. And she's still at the property. And we love the late fees, but for some reason, but delinquency has always been low. It's surprising. We've never had a property in any other market where delinquency has been less than like 2-3%, let alone 5% or 10%, right? And a number that I actually looked up this morning is that we still have retained 37%. So 37% of our original tenants are still there. They've gone through 3 rental increases because we did one in the $385 increase that was effective December. And we did 6-month leases so that we could, when during the hot season of leasing, we could do another increase. So we retained tenants there. And then we did another like small, just like 10% increase, like June, July. So these tenants have gone through at least 3 rent increases, and we've been able to still retain 37% of the 54 units. With that retention, because like if you think about it, if I had a 60% retention, 54 times 60, that's 32 units. And then we retained of the 32. So we're at 20 of the 32, divided by 32. So that's still as like 62.5% retention of the original tenants that stayed. I mean, that's pretty freaking awesome, right?
That's freaking dope. Are you kidding me? Woof.
So
Woof. I hope people listen to this podcast, rewind it, because Joe has brought on such a great journey for all of you to learn from. Not just from like single family, like he stepped into it the right way. He didn't rush into it. And that's what I hope my daughter listens to one day. Honestly, Joe, like just learn into it. You bought a couple of deals, you pause because you learn, okay, this is where I want to focus next, and you learn again. Then you cut your teeth through a really, really hard deal. You stuck through it, but most importantly, you helped people believe and reinforce why they trusted you in the first place during that deal. And here you are now on a freaking home run deal because of how you've been trained to look at these deals throughout your entire career so far, to spot that, hey, this is a slam dunk deal. We're going to do amazing on this. And you operated really well. And you thought outside the state to bring in labor. This has been just put a bow on it. This is such a great conversation, Joe. Let me ask you one more question. And the genesis behind this question, Joe, is when I started this podcast 3 years ago, people have always said, Kent, you're never going to be able to solve for enough supply of affordable housing. And I always told them I beg to differ because I think it's truly about getting enough pieces to the puzzle so that you can just put it all together. And I view you as such a great piece of this puzzle because not only have you cut your teeth on affordable, shedding some light on auto compliance, which is related, but you can also create more supply, even if they're market rate. If they're affordable at 30%, 40% of someone's income. And you're doing that right now. So affordable isn't just guns, drugs, drama. It's beautiful homes, just like what Joe and his team are doing. So, Joe, why do you think affordable housing, particularly the lack of supply of affordable housing, has just been like so hard to solve for?
yeah, because I mean, like when you get in this business with syndication, like you try and maximize every dollar, right? And syndicators, I think, feel like they have to like get every single dime and dollar out of it. And it comes sometimes to feeling like you're nickel and diming your tenants. And so
Yeah.
I know people like feel like it's really tough to make things affordable with apartments, but at the end of the day, what's your true definition of affordable? Like what you're saying too is like saying 30-40% below. If you can make your numbers work at, that level or like 20% to 30%, then great. Because at the end of the day, people is our business, right? It's investors making sure
Yeah.
that they maximize their returns, but it's also our investors get nothing if our tenants are not happy. and their environment that you are creating is not good. So it is important to think about the affordability aspect, staying under 30% of AMI. But the other piece to that is like we have to remember that these tenants are people, and it goes back to impact investing. It's like, what are the services that you're providing to that tenant? How are you impacting their lives at these properties, right? What are you doing to help build a community? There's an operator out of Texas. Like Texas right now, there's a lot more delinquency and it's tougher. So it's like, what are you doing as an operator to give them, to support them with like rental assistance programs? And then I know operators, and I'm like looking forward to implementing this. They're helping their tenants with like credit repair and helping them like getting them into classes on budgeting, like in Dave Ramsey's budgeting classes. So it's like how else are you making an impact on your tenants to help them make it more affordable? What you're providing to, like, at the end of the day, like, you're providing a safe, secure home and community. So it's like, what are those things that you're doing to help them feel? Because like if your rent is still a little bit higher, what are you doing to make them feel like they're just getting an absolute killer of a deal, right? Like, what are those other things outside of maybe the core of the business that you're doing to providing support for these tenants? So we'll do parties for the tenants. We're doing I just posted this on LinkedIn this morning. We're doing like a Halloween door decorating contest for all of our properties because it brings the community together, because the community gets to vote on everybody's doors, and the first place, second place gets a discount on their rent. Like, it all comes back to the community and the environment. And I think that helps make things even more affordable because it's all up in the mind. Like, you could have like the most expensive rent and it still be affordable maybe for that area. But if they're like, it's always dirty and there's, the property management sucks and your tenants are loud and noisy and there's dogs pooping everywhere, that makes the affordability feel a lot tougher to swallow. And so they go to those communities that have, the even if they don't have any amenities, right? If it looks safer, if it looks cleaner, people pick up after their dog poop, it's all about the environment.
That is
And
so
the
good, man.
concept, right? It's the concept too of what they're renting.
Yes. The whole thing, it's a whole experience. And I love how you even brought up like safe and security. I've literally seen other apartment asset managers where sometimes the first thing they do when they bought a place was they fired a security to maximize the bottom line. And I was like, how are people going to feel safe in that area if you don't have security patrol in the area? That doesn't make any sense. But it's learning how to balance. Yeah, you're trying to maximize returns, but sometimes people just get so scared, like, oh, if I don't get this extra point of IRR, no one's going to invest with me. But what was your assumption? How are you going to make sure that everybody doesn't leave because you're providing a crappy experience for them to live in? That doesn't make any sense at all. So
Yeah.
I hope people out there, they follow you, they listen to you, Joe. They understand how to look at a deal a little bit differently than some of the rainbows and unicorns that are sometimes presented in deals out there that have assumptions that need to be challenged. But more importantly, you have to figure out who the sponsor is and whether or not they are willing to go team no sleep for 72 hours drinking Red Bulls to make sure they can get you recapitalized. So, Joe, I cannot thank you enough for coming on the podcast, man. I had so much fun with you today, dude. This was so dope. Man, for people that want to get in touch with you or learn more about what you do, where can they get in touch with you, man?
Yeah. Well, and thank you, Kent. I really appreciate the message that you're putting out there with your podcast and helping people understand like how to make it work with affordable housing. But you can check me out. Cowboycapital.us is the website. You can email me, joe@cowboycapital.us, or, hit me up on LinkedIn, Instagram.
All right, guys.
But
make sure you follow him. And Joe, I cannot wait to bring you back on a podcast to hear about your other deals once you exited this one. It's going to be good, man. I can't wait to bring you back on, dude.
well, thank you, Kent. Sure appreciate you.
All right. And we are out.